They were one of the most successful species on the planet.
With intelligence and adaptability that put them on top of the food chain.
Some of their descendants even became man's best friends.
But we need to share the same space, and if we can't make that happen,
our ecosystem might never be the same.
It's time to see wolves in a whole new light on this edition of Saving the Species. Hello and welcome to Saving the Species. I'm Bill Street. In today's program, we're going to challenge you to question many of the things you think you know about wolves. Why the challenge? Well, with so few wolves left in the wild, and with so many humans impacting wolf territory, it's no exaggeration to say that improving our knowledge of these amazing animals is critical to their survival. In fact, not understanding wolves can lead to all kinds of unintended outcomes.
Hi, Megan Glasson here in Williamsburg, Virginia, and I need you to stick with me. We're about to cover a lot of territory. Imagine you're driving down a forest road and you see what appears to be a puppy along the side of the road. Kind of looks like a little German Shepherd. Aww. It appears as though the puppy's been abandoned and you're not some kind of cold-hearted monster, are you? So meaning to do the right thing, you stop, catch the pup, and then take him to the vet. Only once you get to the vet, they tell you, that's not a puppy, it's not, it's a wolf pup. I'm sure the vets just made a simple mistake and everything. Oh wait, they had it DNA tested. It's a wolf pup. True story, by the way. Happened here, just outside of Ketchum, Idaho. Now, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. This was not an ideal situation. The folks who picked up the pup meant well, but let's see what happens next.
The conservation group, the Defenders of Wildlife, agreed to step in and lend a hand. First, they wanted to determine that the pup was an actual gray wolf. Next, they worked with the Idaho Department of Fish and Game to try to locate the pup's pack with the intent of a return to the wild. Unfortunately, that didn't happen.
So at this point, all the preferred options are off the table. The best outcome now is to simply make the most of bad circumstances.
They moved the wolf from Ketchum to Boise in order to take advantage of Zoo Boise's experience in handling wolves. Next, the vet team determined that he was thin and anemic, probably because he was eating the wrong diet. Zoo Boise did a fantastic job in getting him on a proper wolf diet and restoring his health.
Still, the pup needed a permanent home, and that brings us back to where we started, Busch Gardens in Williamsburg, Virginia. By sheer coincidence, the park's wolf habitat was in the process of acquiring new pups.
Well, bringing in a wild wolf pup was certainly not part of our original plan. But since we already had two pups on the way, everything was in place and ready to go. We hope that by bringing him in with the other two pups, he might come to regard them as pack mates, and that kind of bonding will help ease his transition and allow for much less stress.
How did it all work out? Well, we'll have the rest of the story later, but I can give you one small hint. You see that wolf over there? His name is Boise.
The story of the adopted wolf pup, now known as Boise, is not your typical wolf tale. In fact, wolves generally stay as far away as they can from humans, leaving their behavior and whereabouts as something of a mystery. Over the years, storytellers have filled that void of knowledge with all kinds of fantastic legends. But now, our own Chuckaroo is here to debunk some of the myths and introduce you to the amazing truth about wolves.
Okay kids, let's gather around the fire while I read to you some stories from the completely unfair and grossly over-exaggerated book of unlikable wolves. Okay, let's see. Ooh, the story of the three little pigs. I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down. Forget about all that. Houses made of straw are never gonna sell in the current housing market. Oh, here's another one of my favorite. Little Red Riding Hood.
Don't go in there, Little Red! That grandmother of yours needs a shave.
Ooh, and check this out. Here's another reason to hate on wolves. The werewolf. I guess this is when regular wolves just aren't big and bad enough. Look, the point is, wolves have gotten a bad rap over the years, and we need to set the record straight.
Only a few hundred years ago, wolves were one of the most successful species on the planet. Almost every continent had its own subspecies. In North America alone, wolves numbered in the hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions. However, as humans grew in number, wolves declined. Perceived as a threat to be hunted and eradicated, many wolf populations shrank to near extinction.
Today, we know that wolves are a vital part of a healthy ecosystem. So our improved understanding of what makes a wolf is equally vital.
To get a better handle on wolves, let's start with something we all know and understand. Believe it or not, all dogs are descendants of wolves.
Yes, even this one.
So let's start with what we know. Just like dogs, wolves are smart.
Though when it comes to surviving in the wild, wolves have kept a certain set of skills that domestic dogs have lost over time. Sorry, Spike, you were born to be mild.
Over the years, dogs have been selectively bred for certain tasks that humans were interested in having them do, such as hunting or guarding. So they don't have to use the same thinking power as a wolf out in the wild, because they don't have to perform the same types of tasks as a wild wolf.
Then there are the physical differences. Now, this guy is very different from his wolf cousins in a variety of ways. But what about bigger dogs like German Shepherds or Huskies?
Well, they are similar, but there are some major attributes that set them apart. Wolves generally have stronger jaws, longer legs, and more strength and stamina all the way around.
Now think of what we expect from our domestic dogs. Maybe a little game of catch, maybe some frisbee. Oh, I got it! But there's a big difference between landing this and landing an elk. If I'm a wolf, I need to keep my edge. I need the extra power. I need endurance. Why? Well, it's simple. The things I like to eat are always on the move. And none of them seem to want to join me for dinner.
This is where the wolf's intelligence and physical attributes come into play. Smell is the wolf's most powerful sense, with a nose that can detect prey from far distances. And did you notice those triangular ears? They allow wolves to hear frequencies far beyond what we humans experience. Once on the move, the wolf's intellect and hunting skills kick in, all supported by a powerful torso and legs, allowing speedy pursuit of prey over long distances.
Now, to put things into perspective, we have to start here at the ground level. Herbivores feast on grass and other plants.
Those herbivores might fall prey to carnivores other than wolves. Wolves sit at the top of the food web, an apex predator with 42 teeth and a jaw capable of cutting through muscle and bone using 1,500 pounds of pressure.
This nutcracker only uses a small fraction of that. Okay, just to recap, apex predator and this guy.
But the difference between wolves and dogs doesn't stop with survival in the wild. It's also about social survival. Domestic dogs need to live peacefully with humans.
To make this work, dogs have to be submissive. In a sense, it's like they've adapted a permanent state of puppyhood. Isn't that right? Whoa. See what I mean?
And the alpha has a lot of different jobs in the pack: to hunt prey, to choose den sites, and to protect the pack's territory. So in order to do this, they have to be aggressive. That's exactly the opposite of what we see in our domestic dogs.
But there are some behavioral similarities. Both dogs and wolves are hypersocial.
Dogs will bond with other dogs and their human owners for companionship, and this forms a kind of a pack, with the humans as the alpha members. But wolves tend to stick to very close-knit family units. That's usually made up of a breeding male and female that serve as the alpha pair, some younger siblings, and the average pack size ranges from about 5 to 7 wolves.
And since dogs need humans and wolves don't, we know that wolves just aren't suitable as pets. They're too wild and independent to adjust to being pets. Isn't that right?
However, in the wild, the fact that they don't need humans actually works in everyone's favor. Wolves go to great lengths to avoid people.
Which means all those big bad wolf stories really are fairy tales. In fact, there are very few documented cases of wolves attacking humans.
Instead, they have plenty of success with their natural prey and are just amazing animals all the way around.
Now, speaking of amazing, check this out. Spike, roll over. Roll over. We worked in rehearsal. Spike.
As Chuck just demonstrated, wolves have rarely ever been a direct threat to humans. However, in the past few hundred years, the perceived threat of wolves led to the mass extermination of wolves in certain areas. The good news? Once threatened gray wolves are slowly making a comeback in some areas of the United States. The bad news? Other wolf subspecies, such as the Mexican gray in the Southwest, are still dangerously close to extinction. Now, thanks to funding from the SeaWorld and Busch Gardens Conservation Fund, the coordinated effort of several wildlife agencies, plus the help of conservation groups such as the Endangered Wolf Center and Defenders of Wildlife, efforts are underway which could restore ecological balance in an area where these wolves used to rule.
The sun won't be up for another 2 hours, but timing is critical, and the day's success depends on an early start.
The goals of today's capture are to safely capture 2 wolves, a male and a female. The female is pregnant.
Now to explain what's at stake. The wolves we're talking about are extremely rare Mexican grays. The plan is to transfer them both from their current location at the Sevieta National Wildlife Refuge in New Mexico, then transport them more than 220 miles to their new home, Arizona's Apache National Forest.
Mexican gray wolves are critically endangered, and so releases like this are vital to maintaining the health of the population in the wild. Not only getting the numbers up, but also keeping the genetics healthy by introducing new genetics back out.
After entering the Sevieta Refuge, the team prepares for the task at hand. It's important that everyone knows their part. Otherwise, there's a very real risk of injury to wolf or human.
This is not a zoo. These animals are not used to people coming and going. So the mere fact of a large group coming in is going to cause all the animals to start running, and it's very stressful for them.
The plan is to enter the wolf enclosure and form a human wall, guiding the female and male into separate den boxes.
Okay, the next time she turns around, we'll go ahead and take like 10 more steps forward.
The process is never easy, but this time it all goes as planned.
Okay, great.
Now, with the female wolf safely captured, the team confirms the pregnancy seems to be on course.
She has already probably plucked her own belly hair ahead of whelping, and that's to help the puppies find the nipples and be able to nurse. It's a sign that she will be whelping. It's a good sign. It's biology, and her biology telling her to get ready.
The pregnancy is critical. The theory goes, once those new wolf pups arrive, they won't be as mobile as the adult wolves. The male and female will stay anchored to the territory, increasing the chances for a successful, permanent relocation.
It is one of the harder things to do is to insert wolf in crate. Without a doubt, one of the harder things.
With both wolves loaded, it's now time for a 5-hour drive through the open range of New Mexico and Arizona. And then finally, arrival at their new home, the Blue Range Wolf Recovery Area.
It's a very happy day, and they're one step closer to being in the wild.
It's cause for celebration, but the work is far from over.
We put these wolves in here to replace wolves that unfortunately were illegally shot here in the area. So we want to make sure that we're keeping our wolf population healthy and making sure that we have opportunities for this population to grow and to be managed in a responsible way.
To be sure, not everyone supports wolf reintroduction. Historically, wolves have been treated as a threat and dealt with in the harshest way possible.
I think, to me, what's at stake is righting a wrong. We, the federal government, other local, state governments, spent a lot of time trying to get rid of predators. There was a very successful anti-predator campaign in the late 1800s that caused, the demise of the wolf.
And even today, with only 75 known Mexican wolves living in the wild, some view them as nothing more than an unwelcome threat to livestock. Groups opposed to wolf reintroduction maintain it's not possible to have wolves around without resulting harm to livestock or to humans.
We have to learn to coexist with them, to live in harmony with them. And there's quite a few things that can be done in terms of education and pro-wolf activities that will help the rancher work and live in harmony with them. But it's really a cultural change.
Scientists have been working for several years now on developing pro-wolf ranching methods to help work with ranchers on how to exist in harmony with not only wolves but other predators.
Wolves are a keystone species. They keep our ecosystem healthy. We learned that at Yellowstone. For over 100 years they didn't exist there, and we saw so much happening with overpopulation of elk and other species coming in and taking that particular niche. When they were reintroduced back into the wild,
the population started equalizing. We're seeing that here in New Mexico and Arizona.
As for these recent transfers, things look good. Both wolves are calm and seem to be adjusting to their new location.
Now we give them some time. We let them get used to the area by being in the pen for several weeks. She'll have pups, hopefully in the next 7 to 10 days.
The plan is to eventually open up the gates and let the wolves step out into the wild at their own pace.
We'll continue feeding them until we document their ability to kill elk and slowly reduce, their need for us and increase their survival on their own.
As you just saw, the reintroduction of the Mexican gray into the wild is an uphill battle. In the case of another recent relocation, an unknown gunman shot and killed the female wolf. Which brings us back to the subject of knowledge. The more we know about these animals, the more likely we are to value their place in the wild. Perhaps we can positively alter human behavior if we gain a greater appreciation for wolf behavior.
As top predators, wolves know all about staying out of sight. However, Jeff Dolphin has a hunting trick of his own.
There's a yearling wolf from the bluestem pack. You can barely hear him. He's one we might try and get a look at today.
There are only 75 Mexican wolves known in the wild. At any given moment, wildlife specialists like Dolphin can tell you the location of most of them.
Okay, this is 1290. This is her brother. You see this big mountain right here? This is Mount Baldy on the horizon. And he's been just to the east of it, directly where I'm pointing.
Many of the wolves are fitted with transmitting radio collars. Each has its own signal and corresponding number. Using a method called radio telemetry, Dolphin can use the signals to keep track of individual wolves and entire wolf packs.
This is 1107, the one we heard on the way up. He's the closest out of all of these ones that we're hearing.
While radio telemetry can reveal locations, it can't tell much about wolf behavior. At least, not without some additional detective work.
We came up here, we had a cluster of points from this female's GPS collar in this area. It showed she was here for about 2 days.
It could be that the female is looking for a spot to make a den, a birthplace for future pups.
Also, I mean, there could be a kill somewhere here in the area, so we're checking these points one by one to see if there's anything that was keeping her here.
To the untrained eye, this hike reveals nothing. But for the trained nose,
it's very musky smelling like elk.
Dolphin follows the scent and finds evidence of wolf activity.
This is where the point's at, right here in this area. And there's fur here, elk hair, lots of elk hair. They were eating on something, and this is where it was.
All evidence pointing to an elk kill, with not just one, but several wolves working together on the hunt.
Now look at that tree. You see the broken branches on it? That means this animal, this was its last moments right here. They had it crowded in these trees, and that's when they were able to take it down.
Wolf packs can vary in size and number. Gray wolves, for instance, tend to have larger packs than Mexican wolves. However, the basic structure is the same. There's the alpha male and female, plus the pups and juvenile wolves.
Usually the pups from the previous year stick around and help raise one litter and then disperse the following year.
One of my favorite things about wolves is their social structure. That was one of the things that surprised me, is how close they resemble our family. They have their ups and downs and their drama, and you'll see mom and dad discipline the younger ones, and they play, and it's amazing to watch the interactions between the pack members and how loyal they are and how smart and how much they work together to make sure that the whole pack survives and is strong.
Wolves nurture and care for each other. However, that's not to say all is peaceful in the pack.
When those wolves become, a year and a half, 2 years old, those juveniles will start to disperse and try and look for other males or females to pair with and start packs of their own in different territories.
And whether it's a new or established pack, the struggle for the top job never ends.
It's kind of natural selection and nature's way of ensuring that strong, healthy, dominant wolves are always there to pass their genes along. So there's always a fight, and a reestablishment of dominance.
Wolves have intense social structures, structures that couldn't exist without a means of clear communication.
I like to howl right when it's getting dark. That's when I'll go as close as I can to them and I'll howl at them like this.
At this time of day, there's no reply, but closer to dark and with wolves closer by, Dolphin has prompted return howls, which he's recorded.
I almost feel like I'm talking to him, but I don't know what I'm saying. But howling is a very complex thing, and each howl is different. Like my voice is different from your voice. One wolf howl is different from another.
But even if he can't speak wolf, Dolphin and his colleagues can detect enough differences to gather some basic data.
Sometimes what we do is we'll do a howling survey, but we'll go to the rendezvous sites and howl, and then the wolves will howl back. But we can try and count how many pups are there sometimes from those howls.
Because many wolf populations were eradicated more than 100 years ago, much of the knowledge we once may have had of wolves died with our ancestors. Now, it's a matter of regaining that knowledge, even as wolves reclaim their place in the wild.
When you follow an animal like this through the woods and see where it goes, where it hunts, and how it utilizes the landscape and its environment that it lives in, you definitely learn to see things like the way they're seeing them on the landscape.
Many of us could go our entire lifetimes without ever getting to see wolves in the wild. Fortunately, zoological settings give us opportunities to make discoveries of our own. In that spirit, it's time now to return to the story of Boise, the wolf pup mistaken for a dog, and now living in a place where people encounter wolves on a daily basis.
Wolf Valley at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. It's home to several adult wolves, plus some younger juveniles. One goes by the curious name of Boise.
Well, he came to us from Zoo Boise, so the name Boise just kind of stuck.
Just like out in nature, Boise's learning to find his own place and order among the other wolves.
At first, it was just a matter of acclimating, getting used to the new environment, but in the last few months, he's really started to settle in and find his own groove.
Not only is Boise finding his place within the pack, he's also forming his own routine, even venturing out now during education presentations.
We really view the wolves as ambassadors of their species. When people experience the wolves here, they start to get a sense of their family structure, how smart and loyal they can be, how adaptable they are.
And it's not just a matter of seeing the wolves. With this species, sometimes you have to use your ears.
There's really nothing like hearing a wolf howl for the first time. It's like it puts you back 1,000 years. There's no better way to feel close and appreciate this species better than that.
Whether it's seeing a wolf in a zoo and sharing your knowledge, or supporting the efforts of groups working to ensure the survival of wolves in the wild, there are lots of things that you can do to get involved in wolf conservation. Julie Scardina takes us back to wolf country for a look at how far we still have to go.
Cooperative and highly adaptable, it should come as no surprise that at one time, wolves were a dominant species with extraordinary spread around the globe. The only animal more cooperative and adaptable than the wolf is us. But that hasn't worked out too well for the wolf over the past few hundred years.
During human settlement in the late 1800s, there were a lot of places that adopted anti-predator campaigns, and since wolves were a prime predator in the area, they became a prime target. And in a lot of places across the country, they were almost entirely exterminated.
Fortunately, wolves aren't quite the target that they used to be in some places. With the protection of the Endangered Species Act and the hard work of conservation organizations, wolves did make a comeback. Gray wolves now number about 1,500 in the West and 4,000 in the Great Lakes area, and there's potential room for more. Even with all the areas settled by humans, several states still have enough space for suitable wolf habitats. But for that to happen, it'll take a change of heart. Make no mistake, wolves prefer a wild prey. But wild prey can be scarce. And there are areas where livestock comes in close proximity to wolves, and livestock deaths can occur. So you might be able to understand why farmers and ranchers may view wolves as nothing more than a threat to their livestock and livelihood.
We spend a lot of time with like proactive management efforts that try to reduce the potential for wolf and livestock conflicts before they happen.
Some conservation groups work with ranchers to explore ways of coexisting with wolves, teaching ranchers how to keep their livestock from becoming prey.
A lot of the environmental groups put money onto the ground to help us prevent wolves and livestock from coming in conflict with one another. We have some partnerships with our sister agencies like the Forest Service, and they look at different cattle rotations when wolves are denning so that we can try to move cows away from denning wolves.
Beyond teaching farmers and ranchers how to avoid conflicts with wolves, there's a much larger need for broader education and a cultural change at large. It could be argued that the only wolf we need to eliminate is the mythical big bad wolf that we've created in our own imaginations.
For me, conservation is so important, and education goes hand in hand with that. You can't save a species unless you are learning about them and unless you are teaching children and adults alike about why it's so important.
Why it's so important is that the wolf is what's called an apex predator. Without the wolf doing its job, certain species such as elk start to overpopulate and spread disease. An overabundance of elk can lead to damage of entire tree species. Now smaller animals that depend on those trees are in trouble, and suddenly the delicate balance of a forest is thrown out of whack, all for lack of an animal that serves a vital role. But it doesn't have to be that way. We can restore wolf populations, and we can preserve our ecosystems. It just requires that we all make a decision.
There's plenty of habitat left for wolves. It just depends on whether or not we want wolves there.
That choice is something we all have to think about. To find some good resources and get pointed in the right direction, visit shamutv.com and become a fan of the SeaWorld and Busch Gardens Conservation Fund Facebook page. With these resources, you can learn even more about ways to protect wolves in the wild. Until next time, I'm Bill Street saying thanks to our friends at the Endangered Wolf Center and Defenders of Wildlife for their help. And thanks to you for watching and for your part in saving a species.